bring our carbon footprint down and save us money at the same time. And so, yeah, I'm very excited about that. And Don is definitely up for the task. Phil, to you, buddy.
Perfect. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm just getting weird things on my phone as I'm trying to do this. So, what do you call it? So as we move on from the legislative landscape, as Ryan described it, I just want to dive in really quick on the topic specific areas that we are tracking for the county. The first one I definitely want to jump on was the fact that we did try to divvy these up, as you folks know, so that we were not following those things, putting shoulder behind the wheel on those things that were AOC priorities that they were already working on. So looking at our first one is the governance. And so we had one bill out of that tier that we were in support of, and that was the one that passed. Or the other 3 or 4 that we have in our tier, those did not pass. So that was good. Oh, I apologize. We had 4 that did not, 3 that did not pass, and 1 that passed. The one that did pass was the one we were in support of, and that was related to Oregon marijuana account revenues. They were trying to adjust for the CPI or consumer price index over time. That was really important due to the ballot measure 110 passage, where it was taking a lot of revenue from prior to ballot measure 110. Those dollars were earmarked for local governments. When ballot measure 110 passed, the unintended consequences of how the verbiage of that measure was, it was going to end up rating some of the previous distribution levels. And this bill helps try to tie it to the consumer price index to help adjust for inflation moving forward. That did end up passing going forward. It was definitely in a more reserved mode than what the conversations in committee were. They are expecting to have another bill come forward in the next long session where they're trying to talk about distribution of those funds as it plays out for those communities on borders with other states. That was driven mostly from Eastern Oregon legislators, as you know, they are on borders with states that have not legalized marijuana yet. So probably less relevant for us, other than if it would have went forward in the way they would wanted, it would be less distribution of revenue for the rest of counties, which would have affected the coastal areas as well. So that their version did not pass. They are bringing it back, or they did note in the last hearing on this bill 4056 that they will be bringing back that concept next session as well. But so I do want to just flag that for you.
Hey, Phil, I don't know if you can see, but Commissioner Thompson
Thompson's got a question.
I cannot see, so thank you so much for speaking up and letting me know that.
Thank you. I really appreciate your update. I appreciate your work. What I heard at the meeting of the Rural Law Enforcement Budget Committee is that this Measure 110 has resulted in Oregon becoming a magnet state for people who want to use controlled substances in a relatively consequence-free environment. And the folks, I mean, we see homeless people frequently in more urban areas, both in Clatsop County and along the I-5 corridor. What they're telling us is that we are seeing a greater concentration of homeless folk in rural areas. And frankly, I saw terror on the face of some of the participants of that meeting. I wonder if you are bringing those kinds of concerns to the program, to your efforts. What do you think?
Yes, I have heard that. And it's not that in the room when those conversations are being held, nobody's disagreeing in the sense of, yes, it's causing, it is, I'm trying to find the right way to phrase it. It is bringing folks that are having a desire to participate in those substances at a greater level. What they're trying to do, rather than, from my understanding, and it is definitely become a law enforcement conversation, because what they're seeing is the issues that are the effects of this ballot measure up front on the public safety side. And the conversations with legislators are saying, we are not saying you're wrong, but we are trying to set up on the ballot measure. It sets up the behavioral health system, the investments. and those haven't kicked in yet. And what I really heard law enforcement being told was, let us get the full thing going and then reevaluate whether some of your concerns are going to be taken care of. That wasn't received very well, but that it almost came like a agree to disagree, and they moved on.
Let me just say, I really appreciate that they want to have the revenues in place, and those have to gradually come in before they can do the behavioral health. The problem is we have the immediate problem without any way to address it in terms of law enforcement or behavioral health. So it isn't enough to say, oh, you'll get the money eventually. We used to call it pie in the sky by and by for behavioral health. We need that money now for behavioral health. We need that money now for extra law enforcement. So to the extent you can keep making that argument for us, I think my colleagues agree on that. Thank you.
Well, and if I can add one more thing there, Commissioner, one of the arguments we are also saying in that conversation is, yes, we know the services forthcoming will help on that, but what it is causing is an effective unfunded mandate, because those demands are being placed on the local law enforcement, and we're having to upfront those costs now, where from the state side of things, they see funding coming in the back end. But right now, it's our local sheriffs, our local law enforcement's upfronting the cost to take care of those issues. And I'm not seeing new state funding to help offset that. So I will keep pushing on that if you're good with that.
I'm very good with it. An unfunded mandate should be a compelling argument here at AOC and at the legislature. So thank you for that.
Not a problem. No problem. So, all right. And the other thing I just wanted to note that wasn't on our radar, but I do want to just put on our radar, that was put in the state budget, because I know state budget was one singular bill this session. There was a lot crammed into it, but there were some earmarks that could be coming down to the county level. So I wanted to put that on in your purview. One was through the Secretary of State's budget. The Secretary of State had some of their policy option packages funded. One of that was for approval of new election equipment. They're calling it the New Elections Improvement Plan. And that included $120,000 of grants for each county, along with new postal barcode scanners for a total cost of $1.16 million to the state. So that was funded. It was going through the Secretary of State, so there wasn't a lot of detail in the bill itself of talking about the timing of that. But it did talk about the new barcode scanners will be going to the counties. Grants are set aside for counties. As part of that investment as well, there's going to be $370,000 approved from the general fund that they can use to set up a public service announcements and search engine optimization around election times. They are going to be purchasing that at a centralized level because they said it was more cost efficient, and then offering that to counties rather than trying to stand up individual counties programs where it would have been more costly. And then the remaining $470,000 of that will be held back as contingencies for the Secretary of State, assuming there might be potential cost increases between now and through the election year. And anything remaining of that $470,000 in contingencies are going to be equally distributed out to counties as additional grants at the end of the biennium. And so that being the June 30th of 2023. So not this year, next year. But anything left in the contingency, it is going out equally. They did not put any conversation in there about, population. It was just equal to all counties, whatever's left over. So, but that is an assumption that they don't burn through that contingency at the state level. Moving on, I'm gonna move on unless there's a question there that I'm not seeing.
See any questions? Go ahead, Phil.
Okay, I'm gonna move over to infrastructure. Infrastructure, there were good investments on the state level from that. The $400 million housing package did pass. Within that, it was $145 million will be set aside to help cities and local governments address homelessness. That includes, and I know we have that as one of our priorities that we were looking for, 75 million of that will go for Project Turnkey. So part of that will go to advancing a backlog of applications and then allowing for additional applications should they meet the requirements of the ARPA funds moving forward. They had to rule out a few turnkey projects statewide because they did not meet requirements as they were going through the audit process. So in addition to the 75 million, some other dollars that were previously allocated might also increase that amount. So again, 75 of the 400 will go to Project Turnkey. 25 million will go to shelter operations and technical assistance. Some of this money is earmarked and for other counties. So there was a bill 4126 that established 8 different, it was Representative Crop from the Bend area, proposed 8 different navigation centers and allocating $1 million to each of them. So 8 million of the 400 million is earmarked for those. But we are putting together a breakdown of how that 400 million looks in one document for you. Currently, that is spread across about 6 different agencies and not all in one location. So when they say it's a $400 million, and this goes for the other packages we're about ready to talk about, childcare, things like that. When they say it's a package, it's not a singular bill. It's spread across all of the budgets that they passed in the session and just adding it up under subject area. So just keep that in mind. Our goal is to put that together in a 1-pager, still trying to track down across agencies to make sure that the math adds up there. So I'm not providing misinformation, but also providing in there, this is how you can apply if we would like to go after some of those funds.
Bill, I got Commissioner Thompson has another question.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir. So yeah, whatever you can do to help us get to be one of those designated $1 million babies, I'm for that. I mean, we wanted it. We thought we were competitive. It turns out that we were not. So whatever you can do to help us get access to those funds, I'd urge you to concentrate on that, please.
Absolutely. And that will be part of the rulemaking coming out of the housing housing committee in contingency, in cooperation with Business Oregon. They threw a lot of this money at Business Oregon as well, which is a little frustrating to them as this was not their issue prior and they're having to stand up a new program for it. So I expect that there's probably going to be a few months of lag time for them to set up a new program, administrative rules. And as soon as we have that, we will be able to turn that around and allow you know how to apply. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Commissioner Webb has a question.
no problem.
Yes, thank you. Project Turnkey, we expressed very early in the discussions about Project Turnkey that in Clatsop County, we did a little bit of a very unofficial survey with our innkeepers, and we don't have available motel and hotel rooms for this particular project. Most of our inns are very, very well functioning businesses. And so we were looking for something a little less specific than the Project Turnkey program. Has this morphed into something that is a little bit more flexible than the original inception?
Yes and no. So yes, in the sense of out of the 400 million, 145 million will be set aside for local governments to apply for, and you can use it for similar purposes that Project Turnkey had outside of purchasing motels. But for administration, setting up shelters, those dollars, the 145 million might go, you can apply for that or tap into that section of the funding. Excuse me, 1 second. Apologize. But my understanding is that of the 145 million, there's going to be probably a $70 million request out of Multnomah County alone. So trying to get there early is going to be important. But yes, Project Turnkey was limited to purchasing motels and then allowing those dollars to be used for specific purposes. Some of this 400 million is not just ARPA dollars, which is what they funded Project Turnkey with. So they use general fund for some of the 145 million, and that will be a much more flexible dollars. We'll be able to go at them. But again, it's just a waiting for the state to come up with the parameters of how are we going to apply? Is this going to be an equal grant opportunity? Is it through local governments? Is it going to be community-based organizations? That was not specified in any manner. So, and then the 25 million, that I would say is probably already spoken for. So of that, yes, I would say the 145 million is something that the county could probably look at going after outside of Project Turnkey. So.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. We'll go ahead, continue, Phil.
Okay. Under the economic development sector or section, we have an update that Business Oregon was able to receive $600,000 appropriation to help stand up some very specific studies. They're called emerging sector studies. This might be relevant for us in our area due to what their goal is. And this goal is $600,000 to do robust studies to evaluate these emerging sectors of our economy and figure out how to position our local governments, local industrial lands, whatever that may be. Some of it is, more arts and culture, in a way that we're competitive towards our neighboring states, but also more attractive to maybe the workforce in those sectors. And so that's going to move forward. My understanding is that they will be reaching out possibly through AOC to do a survey. The money's going to Business Oregon, but they're going to contract that out to a firm similar to probably like Eco Northwest, where they do a robust analysis. And part of that is going to be stakeholder outreach. So I would be shocked if at some point the county's not reached out to. The areas that they were told to do these studies is organic ag and organic products, cannabis, commercial music, Oregon resources in the blue economy, coastal areas, and then live performance, which they definitely saw as separate from commercial music. And then there was a leftover of 100,000 of that to do once they do the stakeholder analysis. If there's another emerging sector that there was enough interest that they could go after that. And so there's potential outreach that we should be able to anticipate for that. And then this is, again, another little thing that popped up that our county should be able to be seeing some funds from. They appropriated $180,000 to the Oregon Community Foundation to distribute to each of the 36 county cultural coalitions. Each of those coalitions are supposed to have a cultural plan in place. And so each of them will get an equal distribution of grants into that county plan. And it can be used for cultural nonprofits, artists to receive grants to offset impacts of COVID, to help try to keep some of those more cultural facilities that had to close due to COVID, help them maintain their workforce and stay open. Because what the conversation was is that industry specifically is still falling behind where others have been able to have their workforce come back in. So that is just something that was earmarked. We should see something coming forward to the county from that. And then I'm going to jump over to the social services real quick, because this was a larger area that focused for us. And just to wrap it up before we get to the next section. So there was $100 million passed for childcare funding in this session. Of that, it's a little bit deceiving in the sense of that it's going to go just for childcare. Some of it is going to 60.3 million of it is going to go to DAS for grants to non-agencies and to HEC for administrating specific programs. Part of that, sorry, I apologize to our staff. I'm jumping around a bit. I'm trying to make sure that we don't go over time on you. But for the $60.3 million to DAS, that is going to go to nonprofit agencies and to HEC for administering their programs. That is specifically, there is no real rules on what that money is being earmarked for currently. HEC has brought forward a proposal that they would like to encourage higher education to connect with childcare. It was not fully described, but there's money appropriated to it. And then of the 60.3 million, 2 million of that goes to HEC just for administration, with no description of what the program will be at. You can probably tell I'm a little frustrated with that because it was a very robust conversation and there was just no details, and the committee was pretty frustrated as well. In addition, 39.3 million is going to be going to DAS for rebuild childcare plans. And in our side column, there's several organizations that are going to, you can see that got those allocations. one being Neighborhood Impact, one being Valkyrie, one United United We Health, and then Seeding Justice, which I know AOC specifically might have been they've been trying to figure out that 22 million going in different areas so that it went more effective towards counties, but that was not successful, and we were able to, that still got funded. That will go specifically to cultural specific childcare. Not that that's a bad thing, but there again, this was one of those packages where people were very frustrated in the committee that no details were provided, and there was a lot of money going out the door with no plans in place. And so there was a budget note attached to this that they must come back in the next full session and explain where the money is going and how it's being connected. And if it's not satisfied, half of this funding is not scheduled to be released until that report comes back to the legislature. So if it's unsatisfactory to the legislature, they have the ability not to release the other 50 million of it, just to ensure that by that time plans are in place and that this will actually help the childcare sector of the economy throughout the state.
Phil, I got
yeah.
another question. Commissioner Thompson has a question for you.
Perfect.
Thank you. Well, I'm all for planning and I want to see a plan. What I don't want to have is that the state spends all the money holding meetings, planning, and never has money left to deliver services, because we've seen that happen before. So to the extent you can have any influence in getting an efficient and effective, concise planning process that still leaves money to actually deliver the services, that's what I want us to have. Thank you.
No problem. And Commissioner, there are some sidebars in there that you will be probably happy with, that they did say this money when they come back with plans, because a lot of it will be going to specific entities, but except for HEC, they're the ones that are going to be a little bit more critical on, but the other entities, they can only use I believe it was up to 1% to 2% of the funds for administration. Everything else must go out to actual services. So they normally don't do that in the budget, but that was put in as a budget note. So, and then the rest, again, when I was saying earlier, 100 million going out to childcare, part of that also will just be recapitalizing previous grants that they were using ARPA funds for. Specifically for employer-related childcare, which they had gone through very quickly. The last two special sessions, they were using ARPA dollars to fund that. They put several million into that to get us another couple months down the road. So, and then I just want to note again, there was another budget allocation that for a Clatsop County Family Treatment Court. So in DHS's budget, they allocated an additional $1.1 million to set up new family treatment courts, including a new program in Clatsop County and to support an existing program in Columbia County. And so you should be hearing from the state on that. Hopefully they're coordinating with you and your team, but that was in the budget and that passed as well. That was part of the last amendment that was put in the budget actually. And so just making sure that you're aware of that. So. Perfect. And then I have all of our other updates are in the side columns there, but I don't want to take too much time. If this is the appropriate time to maybe transfer or stop, pause, ask if there's any questions on this specifically before kind of talking about what does this mean as we move into the interim.
Okay, Phil, do we have any questions from the commission? Commissioner Webb.
I'm sorry, I guess I just have a housekeeping question. The package that was sent to me under the social services category does not have the policy tracking and board feedback component on it. I wonder if we could make a note to make sure that we all get a copy of this. It's not in our package. Thank you.
Right, if I may speak to that, there was an additional email because these were some updates that came in after they were submitted to the packet, to the agenda packet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can resend that email so then that way you have that information.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I must have just missed it.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Commissioner Webb. Any other questions?
so sorry. Could I just interject one more? I heard that the screen wasn't updating when I was scrolling through these, so I just wanted to bring it back to the infrastructure slide, just to note, Commissioner Webb had the question regarding project turnkey. So there is just a little bit of information in terms of this. It says now that it's inclusive of acquisition of commercial. It says institutional, it's supposed to be industrial or multifamily buildings as well.
Great, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions? And not seeing any. I'll turn it back over to Phil and Ryan.
Yeah, and I don't know if Don wants to talk a little bit about the goals that he sort of set out for us for the interim, and then I can talk a little bit about the strategy and process for that, or if I can just go straight into it, Don, if.
Ryan, feel free just to go straight in.
Okay, so Don's talked to me a lot about the high priority of fixing the transient lodging tax and making sure that we can make sure that we have a little bit more flexibility for the use of those dollars, not to just spend 70% on promoting the additional tourism. When we're a high tourism area, that we have the ability to spend those resources on serving the impacts and accommodating the tourism, not just promoting more of something we have a lot. Excuse me, that we have a lot of already. And so we have a process that we've laid out for him, that we're going to be reaching out to the Restaurant Lodging Association. We're going to be reaching out to some of the other high tourism local governments to engage their interests, so that we can determine whether or not we want to pursue a solution that is a full statewide impact, or something that is just very specifically narrowly tailored to solve Clatsop County's problem. And so one of the things that we will be doing through that, some of it's a traditional outreach, some of it's going to be convening a table and inviting people to participate in developing a public process that is looks a lot like a policy work group that you would see, or a task force like the resilient energy efficiency one that we have Don sitting on. Then we're going to update the committees and see if we can't use the interim process. So every other month, the legislature meets and holds informational hearings. And so what we would like to do is to use that process to have you guys invited to come speak and present and raise awareness about this issue, so that we can sort of plant the flag about what's coming, what we're hoping to get accomplished in the next long session, and start to hopefully build some momentum behind our plan. And so I don't know if there's more to say than that, but that's definitely the main structures, like the structural elements of how we'll put it together and pursue it for you. I'm happy to answer any questions, but we're sort of at the very preliminary stage there.
Chair Quayla, members of the board, what I just might add is that, this is all going to start with really a comprehensive white paper that we will put together and share with your board, and I think that'll then serve as the foundation as Ryan and Phil and others try to help coordinate the process, so that we can move this topic forward. Part of my concern is that we are staffed to serve a 40,000 population community, and it is very rarely a 40,000 population community, and so in certain times it's quadruple that or even higher. So I think that there's not the tax base with property taxes to allow us to really meet all those service demands, and so we have to figure out what a solution is, because otherwise the impacts of the tourists are actually going to be degrading some of our other service levels, and that's my concern over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you. Well, I'm all for this. I attend every single AOC policy committee meeting, and so governance and revenue certainly would be good for this. The Eastern Oregon Economic Conference is in the middle of June in Hermiston. Yes, I plan on attending that. I really want you to coordinate with me on this, so that I can effectively work for Clatsop County. The other thing is next Tuesday, we're rewriting the SEDS. Sarah Lou Heath has a meeting at the Boynton to talk about rewriting the community economic development strategies. That's a very important meeting. So I don't know who from staff is coming. I know I'll be there. I don't know if Pac West is coming, but to integrate Cedar and Colpack into what we're doing for economic development and how it relates to everything else that we're doing. But that's what I want to see, that integration of everything we're doing. Thank you.
We have not been invited yet, but if someone can share that with us, if they'd like us to, Dawn, you can get us the information, or Amanda, and we'd be happy to make sure we're in attendance and participating.
Commissioner Webb.
Has something gone out that I missed about this meeting next week?
This is the first I've heard of it, so I'm not.
I guess, excuse me, I think I'm asking our staff that.
Yeah, okay.
I got an email from Sarah Lou Heath, and I didn't track exactly who she sent it to. That's why I sent you the information from Colpack and asked to coordinate, because these are the kinds of activities that happen there. So I can't track every single email that goes out, but at the Boynton building next Tuesday, I think it's 10:30 in the morning.
Does our staff know about this?
Dawn, you're muted.
Sorry, yes. I am on the mailing list for Colpack, and so I received the meeting notice also. I think it went to their regular email list is my guess. So
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Ryan, do you have anything in addition, Phil?
No, I think I would just share that what you're probably going to be seeing, as Ryan had indicated on this interim, is that as fast-paced as a short session is, it really is how it feels during an interim as well, because before the end of this year, you have legislative deadlines coming up, where if you want bills introduced, you need to have them to LC. But where I think we're really trying to focus, and I thought this session was very helpful from our end, is when you folks are able to say, these are our priorities, absolutely, and we can focus on those. We can start monitoring, while Ryan has indicated we are going to be advocating in a specific way to get the interim committees, because it is an overlapping process. It's not just, you can't just rely on, hey, we have a legislative days coming up. As one of the commissioners have mentioned, we can tackle this conversation about the revenues in legislative days, but pairing it so that there's momentum being built at these economic summits. If there's going to be a coastal summit, let's make sure that it's part of that conversation, so that there's general momentum building to have a coalition forming going into the next session. Because more and more, a lot of that legwork is done in the interim. And so I think what we're going to be working with your staff and you folks is identifying, we ideally know that top priority. If there's one or two other things that we want to make sure we're watching during next session, and then really starting to engage now, so that everyone feels comfortable going into the full session, which it seems like a far away right now, but it comes up really quick. And so making sure that we're well positioned by the time that January rolls around. Because I think one thing that we don't note in a timeline is, by that time November's over, regardless of who wins in elections, we are dealing with almost more than a third of the legislature will be brand new, and that we're going to be doing a lot of education to legislators on whatever priorities the county wants us to move forward on. And so that is just going to be something that we focus on working with you folks during this interim.
Yeah, thank you, Phil and Ryan. I think your point's well taken with a volunteer commission and a staff that has, like what Dawn had mentioned, has to contend with population almost quadrupled at times. being structured and organized and consistent in the message is so very vital and important. So I'm glad that we have this starting, and thanks again for PAC West and your efforts, and we'll continue the coordination. And thank you for the report.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the Human Services Advisory Council grant recommendations. That's on page 14 of the agenda. And I think I saw Bob. But is it Hannah? Are you going to present on this?
Yes, it is me. I just
Okay.
have to figure out how to share my screen really quick. Give me just a second.
We can see it. Okay,
All righty. Can you hear me okay?
can now, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So good evening. I hope you all are doing well. I'm here tonight to bring to you the Human Service Advisory Council's recommendations of grants to the outside agencies for this year. A total of 14 applications were received, and the council created a subcommittee to review them. And all 14 applications asked for a total of $51,000. And then we managed to recommend a total of 13 applications for the total budget amount of $30,000. And so as you can see on my screen, the organizations recommended are the Assistance League, Astoria Lions, Camp Quanalong, Grace Food Pantry, Helping Hands, Lifeboat Services for the Beacon Clubhouse Project, Lifeboat Services for the Filling Empty Bellies Project, Astoria Warming Center, Clatsop Community Action, North Coast Food Web, Clatsop Casa, the Harbor, and the Healing Circle. And I can go back at any time, so just let me know if I need to go back. You can see on the right side the asking amounts and then what the council recommends. Like I said before, it came out to $30,000 that we budgeted for. And there was one application that we did not recommend due to capital operational expenses. And that's pretty much all. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Hey, thank you, Hannah.
Chair
And
Quillen,
Dawn? Yep.
I was going to say, Chair Quillen, members of the board, if you look at page 107 in your packets, it'll have the same graphic. So just in case it's a little handier to look at it.
Got it, yeah. Thank you. Well, this is wonderful work, and certainly we appreciate the work of the advisory council to go through all of these applications, lots of worthy causes, and then of course having to whittle it to a $30,000 budget amount and make these all fit is a challenge. But we really appreciate their efforts. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. I echo your appreciation. If you look on page 109 of our packet, the total requested monies was $51,000. We only had 30 that we allocated for this. I have to tell you, this is the most heartbreaking part of the year for me, because I read these requests for community services. I look at CASA, they have a waiting list, they have unmet need to provide support for abused and neglected children in the court system. I mean, I don't know how we as a governing body can act to be more effective in bringing funds into our community to address these community needs and alleviate them before they happen. Community mental health, law enforcement, I mean, all of this plays into these. Again, it's heartbreaking. I'm grateful to the committee. I wish we could do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'm assuming that the next step is we would approve these at our next regular meeting,
Yes, I believe that's April 13th
April 13th.
at the
Great.
regular meeting, yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Hannah. Appreciate the presentation, and please pass along our appreciation for the Human Services Advisory Council and their work.
Will do, thank you.
Looks like we've got about 15 minutes before our regular meeting starts. Does anybody have anything that we need to discuss, or do we take a break for 14 minutes? I guess it's 14 minutes now. And see you back in just a bit for the regular meeting. Good to see you, Bob.
Hi, Mark. I'm back. I don't know where I went into Cyberland. Are you ready yet, or?
It gets us all every once in a while. Are you presenting on anything?
Yeah, I'm presenting on the Health and Human Services Advisory, the grants to the outside agencies.
Oh, okay. We already covered it in the work session, Bob.
Okay.
And I think we'll bring it back at April 13th will be the actual approvals.
All right. I'll be there.
Hannah actually covered it during the work session.
Okay. Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'll see you on the 13th.
Okay.
Okay.
And it looks like we've got 6 o'clock. And we've got everybody back. Looks like it. The Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, is now meeting in regular session. Teresa, can we have the roll call?
Chair Quila,
Here.
Vice Chair Thompson,
Here.
Commissioner Toyoka,
Here.
Commissioner Webb,
Here.
Commissioner Banks,
Here.
Thank you, Teresa. We've had an opportunity during our work session to review the formal agenda. Do we have any comments, questions?
Mr. Chair, move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. First item on the agenda is a proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month. And Francesca Lazzari from CASA is here, and I'll turn it over to Francesca.
Thank you. Science tells us that the experiences children have early in life build the architecture of their developing brains. Experiences of abuse and neglect damage this foundation and harm brain development. Healthy development happens in an environment of consistent and appropriate relationships through caregiver responses to children's needs. Healthy neural brain pathways are not built in the brains of children living in an environment of abuse and neglect. Each year in Clatsop County, about 125 children are found to be victims of child abuse or neglect. The human and financial costs of child abuse are enormous. The CDC recently estimated that in the US, the total lifetime financial cost associated with just 1 year of confirmed cases of child maltreatment to be approximately $124 billion. These costs are preventable by connecting families to the community supports they need. Programs such as Head Start, Clatsop CASA, the Healing Circle or VOCA, the Harbor Coast Pregnancy Clinic, and Northwest Parenting, among many others, are important to help stem intergenerational maltreatment and to help parents create an environment where healthy brain development can occur. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Francesca. Great job doing that while you've got a child in your arms at the same time. Well done.
Thank you.
In the matter of proclaiming the period from April 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2022 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas every child is precious and deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, and nurturing environment, free from the dangers of and harmful effects of child abuse and neglect. And whereas child abuse and neglect impact our entire society and can cause traumatic psychological, emotional, and physical harm, resulting in long-term economic and societal costs. And whereas child-focused prevention and intervention programs offer positive alternatives and outcomes for children and encourage families to develop strong, durable ties to their communities. And whereas child abuse prevention succeeds through partnerships among parents, child welfare agencies, mental and physical health care providers, schools, law enforcement agencies, faith-based organizations, businesses, and community members by fostering loving, supportive, and violence-free homes. And whereas all citizens need to be more aware of the effects of child abuse, neglect, and prevention to encourage healthy parenting and healthy communities. Now, therefore be it hereby resolved that the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month here in Clatsop County, and calls upon all community members and local agencies to increase their engagement in efforts to effectively prevent, recognize, and respond to child abuse. Dated this 23rd day of May, 2022, Board of County Commissioners for Clatsop County, Oregon, Marquila, Board Chair.
Mr. Chair, could I move to approve that resolution and order proclaiming April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and authorize you to sign that proclamation, please?
I would second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution and order proclaiming April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and authorize the chair to read, then sign the proclamation. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thank you, Commissioner Thompson, as I jumped the gun on reading the proclamation before we approved it.
We were all eager for it, sir.
And thank you, Francesca. Appreciate you being here. We'll go ahead and thank you. We'll move on to our next item, which is business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except for public hearings or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
Yes.
If you have registered to speak, please wait until your name is called, then give your name and address for the record. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Teresa?
Jeff and Denise Davis.
Jeff and Denise? Are Jeff and Denise Davis with us?
Okay. I also have Charles Dice.
Charles Dice? Charles?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. This is Charles Dice at 31911 Clatsop Lane, Arch Cape, Oregon. Over the past couple of months, I've attended several workshops regarding work done by the Southwest Coastal Citizens Advisory Committee on the Southwest Coastal Area Plan, and have heard Commissioner Thompson and other commissioners mention the apparent desirability for the Arch Cape area to incorporate. I'm not sure if this idea is coming from Commissioner Thompson or from someone in the county administration, but I would like for the commissioners to fully understand that this proposal or idea has no merit and is not really a viable solution today or in the future, as far as I can see. The idea first surfaced in 2013 from a suggestion from the then Clatsop County Manager, Scott Summers. In response to this suggestion, Arch Cape formed a committee to investigate some form of incorporation and worked on the details for about 1 year. In 2014, both the Arch Cape Committee and the county concluded that this idea was not feasible because it did not pencil out financially, could not be supported organizationally, and might not end up meeting state requirements. There have been no significant changes in the past 9 years that I'm aware of, and I believe that such an idea or proposal would have no more merit today than it did in 2013, and would certainly not benefit the citizens of Arch Cape and would have no chance of success. Also, various commissioners have mentioned that the citizens of the Southwest Coastal area seem to want, quote, more or something special from the county, and that these wants or needs could best be served by incorporation. In reality, nothing could be further from the truth. The only thing the citizens in our area really want is for the county to abide by its own laws and to enforce these laws or rules. The only time we have really had problems in our area, at least in the last 20 years I've been here, is when the county has violated its own laws, unilaterally changed the laws, or chosen to not enforce its own laws or rules. So I'd really ask the commissioners to give this some thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Teresa, do we have anyone else?
That's all the business from the public.
Okay. We'll go ahead and conclude the business from the public at this time. We'll move on to the next item, which is the consent. I'm sorry if you, I hear somebody talking there.
Chair Quayla, Teresa, I think that the first two that weren't on when you first
Okay.
introduced maybe on now.
Jeff and Denise Davis.
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. I don't know what was happening before. I couldn't unmute for some reason. Is it okay to go ahead and speak?
Yeah, go ahead if you want to state your name and address for the record, and then you'll be limited to 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Jeff and Denise Davis, 79432 Ray Brown Road in Cove Beach. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak again in the public forum of your meeting. This evening, I'd like to speak to the idea of perception. You may have heard the expression, perception is reality. We as residents in Cove Beach have become faced with the perception that our Board of Commissioners, elected by the residents of Clatsop County, are more vested in the interests of folks who do not live in Clatsop County over those who do, and we are astonished by this. If you were actually representing the voters of the county, you would be moving forward. Would you be moving forward with your plan to change the county's land use code to correct the mistakes you began making in 2018 in the issuing of permits for short-term rental commercial enterprises located in residential zones, such as in coastal residential zone, where it is unlawful to issue them, especially in light of the following? 1, scores of letters and oral comments from residents enumerating the hazards of an uncontrolled increase in STRs in residential areas that do not have the infrastructure to support them. 2, letters from 2 respected land use attorneys confirming the unlawfulness of permitting STRs in certain residential areas such as CR zones. 3, the March 8th decision by the Clatsop County Planning Commission rejecting your recommendation to recode the county's unincorporated residential zones to allow STRs as a permitted use. And 4, extensive media coverage describing how STRs can reduce neighborhoods to resorts for out-of-towners and elbow out local residents from accessing affordable housing options. Your board's continuing on this course of action drives home the perception that you do realize that the county's issuing STR permits in areas like the CR zone is unlawful, and so are taking the expeditious tack of changing the code to bury the crime. What kind of message does this send to your constituents? The reality is that if you push this plan through, this plan of retrofitting the land use code to allow the county to continue to bombard our unincorporated residential neighborhoods with short-term rentals owned by out-of-towners, you will be perceived as not representing the residents of Clatsop County. Is that the legacy you want? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. And that is the end of the public comment. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the consent calendar? Are there any comments, questions?
Mr. Chair, move to adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to the commissioner liaison reports. We'll start with Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've talked about the developmental arc of leadership, and it starts with knowing which room to get into. Then it gets to having a seat at the table, a voice at the table, a vote at the table, and then setting the agenda. Well, happily for Clatsop County, I was invited to have a seat at the table to participate in the selection of the new Development and Land Conservation Department director. Now, I didn't get a vote, but we got to offer comment. There was a group of stakeholders who were invited into the room to hear the 2 candidates for this vitally important position, because we know how important land use is and those land use laws in Oregon. we don't have a seat at the table when it comes to rewriting the rules. That's Commissioner Jacobson from Lincoln County. We did have a seat at the table and advisory capacity, but no vote. So I think we're making progress. And there were two very fine candidates. I think either one would be good. I made my opinion known, and so we got to have input. So that's a good thing. Yesterday, second, we began our water group meeting, and thank you, Commissioner Bangs, for attending. It was wonderful. The purpose of these meetings, I'm going to quote, is to make sure that the process is informed and supported by our community, that there is diverse, widespread, and respectful collaboration. So it's a fine effort. You'll remember that we approved that contract with the Association of Oregon Counties to have a staffer to support this. So we had a county-wide effort, including every area of the county and every voice in the county in a welcoming conversation that honored all points of view. So that's a good thing. I've already mentioned that I went out to the Rural Law Enforcement District Advisory Committee meeting out in Jewel, and I'm telling you, homelessness is an issue everywhere. The funding that the state provides for mental health services is an issue everywhere. I'm grateful to the county manager and to my colleagues for having PAC West on board to help us deal with this problem, because the state is creating consequences for us, and we can call it an unfunded mandate, and I think that's pretty accurate. The point is, it's affecting our constituents. Homelessness is affecting our constituents all over Clatsop County. We've all been getting lots of emails and lots of conversation about Astoria and the Heritage Square project. There's so much community angst about this. It's a bigger problem. It's not our jurisdiction, but we're part of the solution, I hope. So I think that's an ongoing issue. AOC on March 15th had a visioning and strategic planning meeting. It was a lot of hard work, but it was good. It went from 9 until almost 3 o'clock. We had commissioners and judges from all over Oregon. We're looking at how do we redefine AOC and go forward to have better relationships and be more effective. If you have more questions, I'm happy to talk about those. I also go to all the AOC policy committee meetings, except when I get tuckered and have to ask Commissioner Kramer to pick up the veterans one for me, because it's the very last one on Friday afternoon. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to go forward talking again about Colpack and the community economic development that's going on there. I'm happy to share the meeting packet. I've already done that with Commissioner Webb, but if others have questions or concerns, please. And the county manager is always available to answer questions as well. Mr. Chair, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Webb.
I think in the interest of time, I will defer to our next meeting. I'm trying very hard to get to the meeting in Astoria tonight. And I think that as a part of my representation of District 3, I will do that. May I ask your permission, Chair, to duck out towards the end of our, perhaps maybe by 6:25 or so?
Yes, absolutely. I know that you will want to attend that. I know our sheriff is actually there as well.
Yeah.
So yes, feel free to leave in order to get there in time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Toyoka.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I will not be there with Commissioner Webb and Sheriff because I am on my way to Medford to support Seaside High School baseball. They're playing a tournament there starting tomorrow. So go Seagulls. Like Commissioner Thompson, I've got a lot of correspondence about the Heritage Square And I share the same viewpoint that what is not in our purview, it's out of our jurisdiction. We do have an influence as a county because we support and finance agencies that are necessary for that project. So I do believe we have to have due diligence on our part from the county on that project. There is a lot of angst from the community, a lot of the business leaders. I know all of us are being contacted from businesses, from individuals in the area. It is an area of concern. So one that, we have to, as a county, especially with the agencies and funding we provide, take a closer look and listen to the constituents of the county on this issue. Had the privilege of attending a Board of Tax Appeals session this past week. What I can tell you is I take away the professionalism, organization skills of our assessment office. Every review was incredibly thorough and it left nothing to question. So this is my first session, but I will tell you this, I was very impressed in the process of review. Any citizen who wants to put an appeal for their tax, they will get a thorough review, a fair and honest review. So congratulations and thank you to our assessment department. And for Commissioner Webb, I will be brief and end it right there for this week.
Thank you, Commissioner Toyoka, and appreciate your service on BOPTA there. Commissioner Bangs?
Yes, I had the privilege of attending a city council meeting here in Astoria this week. After having a plethora of communications from concerned business owners and individuals, I just wanted to go see and listen. And I feel like, it was an eye-opening moment for me to realize that I think we need to use this opportunity as a county to communicate with our municipalities and try to be part of a solution just moving forward. I think that we need to hear what our community is telling us. And I know that this particular decision is not in our purview, but I do feel that this would be a prime opportunity for the county to reach across the fence and try to be a part of the solution. Other than that, I really enjoyed the Water Consortium participation that I had yesterday. The group is wonderfully diverse, and I think that we will be able to do some really good work. It was very enjoyable to speak from all, to speak with all sides of water concerns. And we even, brainstormed to make sure that we weren't missing any thought processes in the community. And Harmony did an amazing job just with her presentation of that meeting and getting all of us in attendance to be able to go into these breakout rooms and have some really wonderfully full discussions. And so I wanted to thank Commissioner Thompson for the invitation to participate with that. It was a wonderful moment for me, and I look forward to our future meetings. Other than that, it's spring break, and I'm enjoying I'm enjoying slowing down for a half second, and hopefully I get to clean my house. So
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. I don't have any report. County Manager.
Chair Quayla, members of the board, thanks for all the feedback on the housing issues. The city of Astoria, just related to Heritage Square, has been in conversations with the county for a number of really months as they've gone through this, as we are also talking actively with City of Seaside, and we're reaching out to all the cities on a regular basis. So I just want to confirm that those conversations and those relationships are taking place, really constantly. In terms of the county's contribution to the housing discussion, because I think the one thing that we all agree to is that there is a dearth of affordable housing within Clatsop County. And it's really for all types of housing. And so it's going to take collaboration. And one of the strategies that is in the strategic plan for the county is that the county look at our surplus property and that we offer that to the housing developers as as a foundational contribution to actually getting some of that housing built that is so desperately needed. And so within the next 30 days, we will be coming to your board with it's really kind of a solicitation letter to the developers, just outlining all the different properties that on the face look potentially suitable for development of housing. Now, every one of these properties is unique. Every one of these properties has its strengths and its weaknesses, but we're gonna put them out there and see what kind of interest that they generate with the nonprofit housing providers, or it could be even for-profit developers. And so you'll be seeing that in the next 30 days. We will introduce that to your board before we actually release it, just to make sure that you have a chance to actually review all the properties and have an understanding of what that's going to look like. But what we hope is that generates interest. And then once we get the interest generated, then we can start having conversations with those developers about a path forward. So, and the other is that your board has been supporting the shelter system and some of the other safety net providers in the community through the ARPA dollars. I think it was in January that we made contributions to a lot of those agencies, and really those are to deal with these, help them deal with some of these emerging issues. And so we have contact with the nonprofit providers also on a regular basis, and we'll continue to monitor and figure out how we can best leverage county resources to help them meet their missions. So we are actively engaged. I had a meeting with Mayor Jones yesterday, and we talked about a number of these issues, and he's asked me to go to a city council meeting in the future and update them also. And I'm always make myself available for the city. So I just wanted to share that as a little bit of background as we walk through this. Thank you.
Thank you, County Manager. I really appreciate your efforts there. And I know we're thinking big picture here, providing some potential sites for housing. We know what the need is, and thinking beyond Heritage Square, we need alternatives. I think that this is a really good step in the right direction. I appreciate our county manager's efforts there. We'll move on to the business agenda, which is budget committee appointments. It's on page 126 of our agenda. Jennifer Carlson, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I want to first thank you for giving me the opportunity to make some corrections on this agenda item in terms of the districts in which our current committee members reside in. Today, I was also made aware of one additional error on this agenda item. Teresa, can I share my screen? There we go. Oops, do you see the correct screen? I can't tell.
Yes.
Okay. So what I was made aware of today was David Ozier actually resides in District 3, not District 1. So again, I apologize for that confusion. So with that, our current committee members are Tita Montero in District 2 and Danelle Davis in District 1. There are the 3 vacancies. So those would be for District 3, 4, and 5. And we have the same 4 applicants: David Ozier in District 3, Debbie Booth Schmidt in District 2, Gretchen Allen in District 4, and Norman Brown in District 5.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. County Manager.
Chair Quilla, members of the board, I think Commissioner Webb stepped away, and I did want to share her desire that David Ozier is appointed as the District 3 representative to the budget committee. So.
Great, thank you, County Manager. So what is the pleasure of the board? Do we want to fill these all in one action? Do we have a motion to appoint 3, 4, and 5? Commissioner Banks?
Well, I'm comfortable with Gretchen Allen in District 4. So I move that Gretchen Allen fill District 4 countywide position.
East,
I would
signs for
second
Crater
that.
Lake, Klamath Falls.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Gretchen Allen to District 4 Budget Committee. Any discussion? Commissioner Thompson?
Turn left on Oregon
I-
60.
It's hard to drive and have a guidance system and participate in a meeting, isn't it, Commissioner Tarioka? I'm telling you, I've been there. I understand. I'm comfortable with just moving the whole slate. We had our discussion last time. I like Debbie Bushman. I respect the opinions of my commissioners. I would be happy just to move David Ozier for District 3, Gretchen Allen for District 4, and Norman Brown for District 5, and just do it in one fell swoop.
Second.
Okay, so there probably has to be this parliamentary
So-
thing withdraws and the seconder
Yeah,
says.
so we would have to withdraw the first motion, I believe. So Courtney, would you withdraw your initial motion?
I move to withdraw my initial motion.
Okay. Commissioner Thompson has made the second motion and it's been seconded by Courtney, correct, Commissioner Banks? All right. So it's been moved and seconded that the board appoint David Ozier to fill District 3 countywide position, Gretchen Allen to fill the District 4 countywide position, and Norman Brown to fill the District 5 countywide position on the Budget Committee. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer. And we do not have any other items on our agenda this evening. Do we have anything for the good of the order? Okay, not seeing any. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.